I'd like to think that one of the positives of social media, though there aren't that many in my opinion at this given point, I do think one of the positives is a level of accountability. Now, let me be clear, some quote unquote accountability goes too far because I do think people confuse holding someone accountable and then trying to ruin someone's life. Sometimes those actually align, but for the most part, I don't think they do. But there are certain situations where I'm grateful that social media exists because we can bring attention to things that not only are disgusting, but actually just don't really make sense. What am I referring to? If you've been on social media in the past few days, you may have seen a video going relatively viral, especially now. Not in the first few days it was on the internet. I'm going to show you this video and I'm going to give you a trigger warning here. The New York Post describes the video as haunting video shows homeless ex-con allegedly kill Ukrainian refugee on North Carolina train. The video that was released doesn't show the actual murder take place. It shows you what happens before and what happens after. And I usually don't really show these, but it's important to actually see what is shown in this video because there's a lot there that is extremely alarming that has nothing to do with the direct violence, but the response of the people on the train, which is understandable yet also jarring, but also because this is kind of how the story broke, and we're going to get into that because that is part of what doesn't make sense here. So here's that video. I'll put a timestamp if you want to skip it.
This stop is Stanley Park Station. Please exit right. Please stand clear. Doors are closing. Train is about to move. This stop is East West Boulevard Station. Please exit right. This stop is East West Boulevard Station. Please exit right.
So, as you can see in the video, this man attacks this woman. He kills this woman. We'll get into the details of that via an article in a second. And then you see him just walking around the train and no one is doing anything. We'll continue and talk about that after I read the article so you have the full context. But that is what was so jarring and what kind of made this case viral. And the important thing about this going viral as well is that this went viral in the past few days, but she died on August 22nd. So this was like 2 weeks ago, and only now are people talking about it, which is part of why this is so scandalous, disappointing, disgusting, because it just seems like it was swept under the rug and nobody reported on it until now. Haunting new video revealed the terrifying moment a homeless ex-con allegedly fatally stabbed a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee in what police said was a random attack on a Charlotte light rail train. Irina Zarutska, who fled war-torn Ukraine for a safer life in America, was on the Lynx Blue Line just before 10 p.m. August 22nd when she was ambushed, according to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. The surveillance footage released Friday by the Charlotte Area Transit System, or CATS, shows Zarutska boarding the train in her pizzeria uniform at 9:46 p.m. and sitting, looking at her phone, unaware of the danger behind her. Just 4 minutes later, 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. allegedly whips out a folding knife and lunges forward, stabbing her 3 times, at least once in the neck, police said. The chilling video then appears to show Brown then walking through the rail car, stripping off his sweatshirt and waiting by the doors as passengers began to notice blood dripping from him. Zarutska, who grabbed her neck as blood spilled onto the train floor, collapsed in her seat and was pronounced dead on the light rail, investigators said. Police said Brown got off at the next stop, where a folding knife was later recovered near the platform. He was treated at a hospital for a cut on his hand before being taken into custody on a murder charge. It took 6 minutes for police to respond, according to Spectrum News, which noted transit security guards were on the train, but in the car ahead of Zarutska's when she was attacked. Brown, who has multiple arrests dating back to 2011, was charged with first-degree murder, according to CMPD. His record includes larceny, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and communicating threats, according to court records obtained by the Post. The suspect is homeless and once served 5 years in prison for the robbery with a deadly weapon charge, according to WSOC TV. In January, Brown was arrested and charged with misusing 911 after a police welfare check, the Charlotte Observer reported. During that incident, officers said he bizarrely claimed a man-made material inside his body was controlling him as he ate walked and talked, according to an affidavit cited by the outlet. Brown wanted officers to investigate this man-made material that was inside his body, the affidavit said. CATS officials said during a September 2nd public transit meeting they have since hired a chief safety and security officer, tripled the safety budget, and begun replacing aging cameras with high-tech upgrades. On September 22nd, the Charlotte City Council will consider a plan to expand Charlotte-Mecklenburg police patrols on buses and trains. CATS officials also said Friday the video was released due to media requests. A GoFundMe set up by Zarutska's family, which has raised more than $38,000 so far, said she had recently arrived in the United States seeking safety from the war and hoping for a new beginning. The GoFundMe will be linked down below. So there's a lot to be discussed here, I think, from the video alone, but even the details we get from this article, because there are a lot of turning points in this news story wherein the public is enraged, and rightfully so, because the system failed. Zarutska for sure, but the system just failed generally. There are so many factors in this story where I don't understand how there wasn't a significant turning point. There are people who are mentally unwell, as Brown is, in my opinion, who are simply let off the hook over and over and over. And while I do think these people need some kind of mental health assistance, that doesn't really mean that you should just let them roam free and let them do whatever because you view them as innocent little birds who can't hurt anyone simply because they have mental health issues, mental illnesses, whatever the case may be. We see this often where there are people who have mental illnesses or mental health issues. We see that they're either villainized immediately or almost preemptively absolved. There's very little treatment in the middle wherein we can say, you're unwell and that's not your fault, but also we can't just let you do whatever you want because you're unwell, right? So the system failed. Why? Because here it says that Brown went to prison for about 5 years, right? Well, there were 14 arrests though. So there's this picture that was circulating on the internet of all these various arrests. And at no point within these arrests does it seem like he was ever committed to, instead of going to jail, prison, whatever the case may be, to a mental health facility that could actually help solve or get on the path towards solving some of these mental illness issues, these mental health issues. Because in reality, you can lock this person up for 5 years, but once they get out, if we're not doing anything to help what's going on in their brain, once they get out, nothing's changed. It's just 5 years have passed, but they're going to go back to whatever is going on in their head before, right? Now they're just free to do whatever. So the system failed in that way, and the system failed in a serious way because this happened to Zarutska, but it could have happened to absolutely anyone. And realistically, the government is to be completely blamed because they saw all the warning signs. I'd say that 14 arrests are enough warning signs, and they did what? One lockup for 5 years that clearly didn't solve anything? Knowing this, I think that this story was not on the news for a very specific reason, because it is a government fuck-up, it's underlining a government fuck-up, and it's also showing, hey, why weren't you guys talking about this? You'd think that someone, especially a young woman who escaped Ukraine to have a safer life here. This was supposed to be her safe haven. You'd think that that would make the news, considering she got killed in public in front of people and it's on video. How is that not newsworthy? So what I think is that the government knows that they fucked up and they decided to not say anything about it. I also do think that a bunch of publications, which by the way were called out for this, decided to not tell the story. And I don't know if it's because it doesn't suit whatever narrative the media is looking for right now. I don't know. But in any other world, I would find it unbelievable that a news story like this, someone getting stabbed on public transit completely unprovoked, and then having the murderer just walk around the train with blood dripping from their knife, you'd think that that would be something we'd maybe mention. The fact that this was not mentioned, I think, first of all, this isn't a convenient narrative because the victim did absolutely nothing. She was just sitting there minding her business. The perpetrator just killed her senselessly, so we have no real explanation. And I don't know what kind of rapport these publications have with the police, with the government at large, but I also think they know very well that this would make the government look horrendous, which it does. And I don't know what other reason there could be why this was not something that was deemed worthy of being talked about. I don't know. But I will say the fact that this happened at the end of August, a week before August ended, and we heard fuck all until a couple days ago, interesting. And now all the publications who posted nothing are rushing to do it. Yeah, so in fact, there were a lot of tweets circulating about the publications who had posted nothing about this. So nothing on the Associated Press, PBS, the New York Times, NPR, Wall Street Journal, BBC, CNN, Washington Post, Reuters, or MSNBC. None of these people had posted anything as of September 6th. Today it's September 7th. Now they're posting because it has gone viral. Because now you have to, because everyone's talking about it on social media. So now it's really a case of, if you don't post about it, you're going to look even worse. So you're kind of trying to catch up and you're trying to cover, but it's transparent. The other part of this that was jarring is the video, as I said. Now, obviously, if you witness something like this while you're on the train just minding your own business, I think there's a level of shock, and I don't really expect anyone to jump in and be the hero immediately. I do think people are afraid for their lives because someone just got basically murdered in front of them. So realistically, I understand, but if you look at this train, it seems like everyone is absolutely immobile. No one is moving at all. Now, we can't see this, but I think that nobody actually went to try and help her either. From the clips we see, everyone is basically either immobile or moving out of the way of Brown. So this also shows another thing that had people up in arms, because people were hoping not necessarily for someone to even stop the man, because, I mean, he had a knife. It seemed like nobody was stepping in to even help, stop the bleeding for Zarutska. And like I said, this isn't on video, but it very much seems like everyone completely froze. There was no sense of, I say quote unquote community, in the sense of you're all in a very shitty and dangerous situation. And a lot of times a sense of community comes out in that, it's like when we see, it's not the same, but it's like when we see shitty situations in movies where everyone is undergoing basically the same trauma at once, there's a sense of banding together in order to protect themselves, defend themselves, and make sure that said person, like Brown, doesn't do anything else. That being said, we didn't see any of that, and people were up in arms about why isn't anyone doing anything, which again is easier said than done from looking at it at your phone at home versus actually being in that situation. So I'm not blaming anyone on that train, though it is kind of wild that you see someone walking around with a knife with blood. There's blood spatter all over the floor, and everyone is just completely immobile. This situation, like I said, highlights a lot of things that are wrong with our law enforcement all the way up to the government, because like I said, I really don't think it's a coincidence that this story just came out now. Such a big deal like this too, like such a display of violence in public in front of everyone. You'd think that this would be something that would be discussed earlier on. So I do think that this is really highlighting failures on so many different levels. Aside from that, I'm curious to see what's going to happen because, like I said, this person was arrested 14 times. So this was not the first time, and this shows that the pattern went on and on and on, and at no point in those 14 arrests did someone say, we need to do something that is something other than those 5 years in prison, because clearly those did nothing. But aside from that, if you have 14 consecutive arrests, that says that the problem is bigger than just locking you up in a cell. Like there are mental illness, mental health, whatever problems that need to be dealt with if you actually plan to let this person go free. So the system failed in that way too. Not just reporting on the story, but also out of these 14 warnings, nothing told you, hey, maybe this person should not be out in public, end of. That was never a conversation that was had, which is funny because this country is always talking about mental illness, mental health, blah, blah, blah. What are you guys doing though? Like it's laughable because it's so transparent that mental health and mental illness are very convenient talking points when you want people to potentially vote for you, when you want to, back big pharma. But if it's not convenient, then mental health, mental illness, we don't know her, we're not going to do anything, it's your problem. And what we're really seeing here is a government, a police force. There's absolutely no priority for the people out there. So when we're voting for people, when we're backing people, we're not getting anything in return. And that's what really people are angry about. And this might seem like me generalizing, right? But this case is a perfect example. And it's also the beginning of a very slippery slope potentially. Because now what people are doing, and I think most people already do this anyway, people are doubting the media. People are doubting our governments, people are doubting our authorities, which I think, like I said, is already a problem. But when you have a case like this, such a violent, visceral case like this, even more people are just going to say, hey, wait a minute, things are not adding up. And when you have that type of distrust between average people and the powers that be, that is just chaos and mayhem absolutely waiting to happen in a time where political division as of right now is already insane as is. So this is about this case, but it's also not about this case, but about the implications of this case. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Personally, I'm disgusted by all of this. The non-reporting, nobody stepping in. And when I say nobody stepping in, I mean the judges, the people who saw what this man did in all of his prior crimes, decided to just wave it off, say whatever, and then put this person back on the street when they should not have been in public without any type of treatment, which they obviously need. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.